Now you've moved up, right? You got a new role. You moved through the marketing phase. Clifton tells you, no, you're more than that. You say, no, I like my this, but now you're over here. What's a little bit about, what you're doing now? Because you've had a couple of good experiences probably to lean on. What are you doing day to day, and how are you helping this company that's, I think going through some big growth?
It's super interesting, that scaling challenge. And I've seen it, there tends to be 2 bite points, I would say, at that 30 employee mark and that sort of 80 to 100 employee mark. And, using my experiences of what worked really well, what should we have implemented sooner, before we fundraised for our Series A, the idea was to get the skeleton of process in place that didn't really exist beforehand. So when you start adding more people to it, the wheels don't fall off. I think we've all seen startups back in the heydays of VC fundraising, which is pretty much well and truly done. It's definitely not the cattle market that it was. Let's put it that way. There's an appetite for caution, but that's an appetite that our co-founders have always had. So we tried to hire meaningfully. We try to hire when there's actually work for that person to do. And you laugh, this sounds like common sense, but to VC-backed companies, sometimes growth of headcount to drive everything else is the way they looked at it. And we've tried to be really conservative with our fundraise. We want to build a good product, but we want to build a good team too. And tripling, one team in the space of 6 months is not going to be good for culture. And we have a pretty special one. I want to keep it that way.
Yeah, what's so special about the culture there? If you could bottle it, what does it taste like?
Well, we hire for hungry, humble, and smart. And they're just a beautiful group of people. And my favorite litmus test of how are we doing culture-wise is we do Camp TestFit. It used to be twice a year, the whole company. Now we're going bigger, but only once a year. And it's some of our OG employees who say every time at the end of it, they say, there's no way there'll be another Camp TestFit like this. Like, I love everybody. I have so much fun. I just love hanging out with people. And this one we had this past December. I was like, okay, we'd almost doubled headcount. I wonder what the feeling's going to be. And now we graduated to our own rooms instead of Airbnb style situations with room sharing. There are some nice things that come with a fundraise. And some of her original employees were like, I can't believe it. They met a lot of the new hires properly for the first time, and they're all just great humans. Shout out to Brian Jenkins. He was at Iris VR for a long, long time. He's actually been doing our recruitment while he's back at school, and he's been instrumental in hiring the type of people that, just rock and roll at TestFit. They have that empathy, they have that hat for innovation, and they're passionate about what we're doing, while being super careful not to hire for culture fit, because that can turn into a really creepy one where you turn around and everybody looks like you and everybody talks like you. Everyone comes from the same place and all the same life experiences.
That is not lost on me. I actually have that in a talk where it's you don't hire for cultural fit. I like it. You have some core values that you're hiring for, but you got to look for a cultural, not fit, but what don't you have?
Exactly, Jeff. One of our newer employees, Sean, and came from the real estate sort of tech side of things, called it culture ad. And I was like, yes,
thank you.
Exactly.
That is fantastic.
Bringing more to the table. And I thought that was just wonderful. We try to have diversity of everything, and diversity of thought, diversity of background. We had a lot of AEC folks, so balancing it with folks that were more SaaS heavy, age and experience, making sure teams have a little bit of diversity there as well. We were at one point, heck, I think I was the oldest person in the company at 36. Now we've got, quite a few more who have been around the block and seen more and done more than I have, and that experience, and particularly in the startup world, as quite a few of our newer, more senior hires has been immense.
You really need that. You need somebody who's a naysayer and who's against, necessarily just throwing the farm at everything to give you a balance. You also need those risk takers like, hey, I already left. Don't worry, I'm gone. I'm off the edge already. We're just going to try this out and see what happens. So,
Jeff, I don't know if you've ever come across disc styles.
I had.
Yeah, there's Enneagrams or different ones. We've leaned into the disc style of things, and I think when we first did it, we were all D's in the leadership team, which is for D is for dominant. And we realized we needed to have some different voices in there, and we needed ways for them to be heard. So I'm happy to report our leadership team has many more styles, and, the subsequent teams as well. We try to go for a bit of diversity of thought there.